Welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs, and our conversation concludes right now with radio personality from Southern California, both in San Diego as well as Los Angeles, Katy Manor. Now, Kate, tell us about your time at the legendary rock, actually alternative station, 91X.
That is and was a great radio station, 91X down in San Diego, same kind of format of KROQ, only really great promotions. They sent me all over the world, and I did do mornings down there. And I drove below the border for 4 years. At the same radio station that Wolfman Jack, it was just like that border radio station, where it's like the transmitters there. And if that wasn't something that you just say, I had tricks. Because you have to picture, can you imagine coming back through the border every single day?
Oh, goodness.
And there's holidays where it's backed up for 3 and 4 hours. And so, say, Kate, how did you do it?
How'd you do it?
Well, I had my car loaded with swag, T-shirts, bumper stickers, CDs. I had anything that I could give away and bribe people. And so what I would do was, here's the line, is like I said, it's miles long, and I'd go right up to about the 8th car and flail my hands around, and I'd be holding sunglasses and, T-shirts and hats, saying, and I'd give it to the circle of the crowds, the cars around me, and I'd just inch my way in. Every single day I did that. I took my mom down once. I said, Mom, you got to see where I work. And she slithered down in the side seat saying, I can't do this. I don't know you.
But there must have been some pretty good food. I mean,
street tacos.
Street tacos.
You don't know if they're dogs or not. The whole shebang, no. But something, it was just incredible. X-Fest down there. The promotions they sent to Giant Stadium, to Wembley Stadium. I broadcast in my bikini in Jamaica. We did remotes. 91X took really good care of me, and I really have a high regards for that station. I still do.
And they were the same owners as the Mighty 690.
Yeah.
In fact, Ted Zingenbush, who was, I guess, the program director about 10 years before you were there, I interviewed him a couple of months ago, and he told me about how it was a big rating success. Kind of hard to believe, Ted playing continuous soft, easy listening was playing rock and roll as well. But hey, versatility is the key word there. And it sounds like there's a lot more budget and promotion when you were there than when he was there.
Yeah. And when I finally did come back to the States, because the offices were in the States, we did get the station moved up. In other words, the jocks got to come up. Some of my best times were, to the left is 91X, to the right is Mighty 690, and Steve Garvey and I would have a cup of coffee together, and it's just like, wow. He was a good guy.
My favorite Dodger.
Yeah, one thing he said to me that just always stick to me, he said, because he gives talks in prisons and, around the country. And he said, Kate, I would talk to some of these young men and I'd ask them, what did your dad say? How were you going to turn out as an adult? And my dad always said, yeah, you're going to be in prison. And he said, Steve Garvey said, well, you know what my dad said to me? He said, you're going to be a baseball star, and it's just like, are you going to, he just did words of affirmations and that's such a good point to make to people, the power of words. And you know what? The power of radio, the power of music, and that's why we love this business so much, right?
Yeah, exactly. What was a way that, because you mentioned Steve Garvey and the words of affirmation, tell a story about, on any of the stations that you've been on, where you got to encourage a listener either off the air or on the air.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why. I should have been prepared for this. There's hundreds. I can think of so many that they were listeners and they became friends. Mm-hmm. One gal, I guess back in KROQ days, says she's 15 years old. She just said that her mom can't come with her with the daughter-mom lunch at school. And she asked me and I went. And we became friends. And what happened, what I didn't know what was happening is that she was being sexually abused by a stepfather.
Mm.
And so what happened was, I had to call authorities. But, of course, I don't know if you know much about that. They usually deny. And so stuff like this happens where those are the interesting stories. We're friends to this day, by the way. And she's fine, successful person, went through some help. But some of my other stories of just connecting with people, I have a lot, but my favorite ones seem to be at the Christian radio station that I work now, where I feel like it's so weird, Josh, is that we have gifts, both natural and spiritual gifts. And people, I presume people that are listening to this podcast, a lot of them are in the business. And so they have speaking gifts. Mm-hmm. And they have to be, when you're using them, you're most alive. And I don't care how old you are, you just do what you were created to do. But at this radio station, I get to, like tonight when I work or on the weekend, I get to interject things that happen to me, both good and bad. I'll say a lot of things about, like, I've gone to Celebrate Recovery. It is a Christ-centered recovery ministry for anyone with hurts, hang-ups, and habits. And so I was codependent. I didn't know what that was. But for some reason, I couldn't stay married. and it was like, I guess some of my favorite things about radio is that I get to be really real right now. And I don't wear a mask. I can say I'm fun, I'm happy, but I also struggle with some depression or sadness. And I really, really like the fact that someone will call me up and say, Kate, I love listening to you because you could be my next door neighbor and you just sound just like me. Mm. And I guess I think that's the biggest compliment that I can get these days is that I'm authentic and real. And I don't know if it's my age, because I'm in my I'm 64 now, mm-hmm. and it's just like, or if it's just how life has turned out to be, that I like to give these lessons back to people. Don't touch the stove; it's hot. You can go a different way, And those who hear and listen, great. If not, go touch that hot stove and get burnt. But I just want to let you know that it's really, really fun to have an outlet to be able to laugh, encourage, and just be real, and I meet them all the time. I meet them all. I do some speaking engagements where people have me talk at their groups, even a singles group. If you're going to wrap it up, this would be a funny one to mm-hmm. wrap up with. Watch this. Because I was newly married, and they saw how happy I was, and I was mature, and they thought, let's have Kate down to San Diego to talk about how to keep your faith, through the single years. Mm-hmm. How's that one? And so I get there. I had prepared for a month, and I said, "This shouldn't be too difficult." And really, Kate, you're a woman of faith. You can talk on this subject. Well, the more I planned it, the more I realized, oh, wait a minute, Kate. Man, this is going to be hard because you didn't have any faith. You didn't have. So guess what? Here's this 150 people at this beautiful campsite. Dennis Agajanian just opened up. It's my turn to come give a nice message to encourage them on opening night. I said, you're here. You're here to get encouragement about how to trust God when you're single. I looked at everyone and I go, do you want to know? You could hear a pin drop. And I said, I didn't trust God. I said I was mad at him and sad at him. I was screaming on the microphone. I look over the gal that had me there, mm-hmm. and her jaw's on the ground. She's just, forehead down, just going, what is she? She's rogue. And I'm just going, no, I didn't. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? But how did I learn mm-hmm. to trust God in these single years, or when something happens? It's not just for the single people. It's for when that cancer diagnosis, you lost your job, your kids are going sideways. Mm-hmm. So guess what? I got to just say, hey, I learned it like everyone else learns it, as day by day, trusting Him and knowing that He's got me covered. And that's what happened. I forgot to tell you, I had a 25-year hiatus from the last job to K-Wave. And at that time, I did have my own dog boarding business, but I was single, raising 3 kids alone. And I always wanted to get back into radio, Josh, but I was too rough for Christian radio. It was not polished enough. And I was too conservative for secular. So I literally was out of radio for 25 years.
Wow.
And so it's just a crazy story of I did a podcast, He Speaks with Kate. Some of those are up on YouTube. And, you know, if anyone wants to ever connect with me, they can contact you or they can email me at the station, and that's Katy Manor at kwve.com. And I just love giving away what has been given to me.
So that's Kate, K-T-E, Manor,
No,
M-A-N-O-R.
No.
Oh.
It's actually Katy, so K-A-T-Y.
Okay, Katy Manor at kwave.com.
Yeah.
Okay, or kwve.com.
Yeah.
It's funny.
kwve.com.
It's like my spelling bee. When I would take the spelling bee or the test spelling bee in second grade at home, I'd get 100%. But then at school, the same words, I'd miss like 2 or 3. I'm like, oh, goodness gracious.
It's the pressure. But do you have? I don't know. I kind of feel like that's a good point to kind of end on. Unless you wanted to. I just feel bad. That's what I want to say is that radio is great. And Josh, I see what you're doing with your gifts. And we did meet through KKLA, did we not? Because I used to listen to that radio station, and of course, I'd have people, you know, connect with Frank Pastore or Sontag or even Sue Fries. And I know that you've been around so many radio stations, and your heart for across the board and your knowledge, you really did need to do a podcast and so much more. And so I want to compliment you, and I want to encourage you just to keep doing it.
I appreciate
keep
that.
On doing it. Yeah.
You know, the way it came about 2 years ago, Jay Gardner, who had been on KROQ 101, Arrow 93, and KHJ, started working as a board operator behind the scenes, and I got to know him, and he was telling me all these great stories, and also how he worked with David Letterman. He's the guy who always said worldwide pants at the end of the show. And I thought, okay, I got to put this to tape. And I thought, you know, not just him, like, because the Television Academy has all these great interviews with celebrities talking about their movies, their TV shows, but there wasn't seem to be much for radio. And I thought, you know, let me try to change that, at least, you know, do a small part of that. And so that's the goal of this podcast, is to have people tell their stories. And also, I just was wondering, what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given? I like to ask that question of everybody I interview.
Yes. Do you want to know something? I heard you do that, and so I'm prepared.
All right.
And it's not going to be what you think. It is not going to be, you know, like, you know, pay your dues. It's not your typical advice like that. Mine's going to be different. Mine's going to say, know who you are, know what God has put inside of you, both naturally and spiritually. And I have to say this. I just have to say this. God made everyone, and he has a purpose and a plan for them. Ask him. Hello? Just say, where do I belong? And he'll put you there, and do things his way. That is my best advice for anyone across the board.
That's great. You know, it's interesting. Brian Perez, either yesterday or the day before, said that David Nars had come to visit K-Wave. I'm not sure if you were there when he...
I was.
Oh, I did. Because I met his dad, Jack Nars, probably about 4 different times. And I used to watch Jack on Concentration back in the mid to late 70s when he was hosting it. And I remember reading an interview with Jack back in the late 80s. He says, yeah, the young broadcasters aren't interested in what old pros have to say as far as, you know, breaking into broadcasting. So about 20 years ago, I was at a game show convention. Jack was there. He was one of the speakers. They were honoring Bill Collins. So I went up to Jack and said, Jack, I'm one of those young people who wants to host a game show, and I want your advice. What's your advice to those of us who want to host game shows? So I was thinking, okay, he'll talk to me for about maybe 10, 15 minutes. He said two important things. He says, first of all, be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. It's okay to be influenced by others, inspired by others, but be yourself. And second of all, have a good time. Because if you're not having a good time, the contestants won't have a good time. And it rocked my world. I was like, whoa. He said this all less than a minute. It's like, and I remember to this very day.
Right. I agree with that, by the way. I totally agree with that advice.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
And the other thing is I've had people, in San Diego, Trip Reed, that same program director, told me he didn't get it, why I got paid so much money. He didn't really like me. He just thought I was getting paid too much money, which I probably was. But it's just like when someone doesn't have confidence in you, especially a boss, it's time to go to another radio station. Someone needs to appreciate you. And then there's other times, remember I told you, pray about it, God will open up some doors, but sometimes those doors don't swing open wide. Sometimes you really do have to just never give up and just say, look at, I have a file of a bunch of radio stations. I couldn't even get a board op. I tried at KKLA to get a board op job. No one wanted me.
Wow.
Either overqualified, underqualified. And so guess what? When you know that you come most alive doing something, don't give up. Just don't give up on it, and get creative. And like I said, just keep on knocking on those doors and keep on creating. And so when you're ready, when my radio station didn't hire me for a year, K-Wave didn't. They weren't in any hurry to hire me. I started my podcast, He Speaks with Kate, all one word. And it's just like, something, that creativity has to come out. And when you do it, you get better at it, and your confidence is stronger. So that is some really good advice.
Oh, thank you. And that is great advice. We've been talking with Katy Manor. She's currently a personality on, what time are you on K-Wave on weekdays, by the way?
I'm usually on a Saturday night, afternoons, 4 to 11. Tonight I fill in for people in the evening, afternoon, like 7 to midnight. If you hear a female voice, 50% chance it's me on K-Wave 107.9. Your home for worship and the word.
And you're up in that 8-story building, I think it is, kind of on the Costa Mesa, Santa Ana border.
Yes. MacArthur Boulevard, Fairview. And yes. God bless you, Josh.
You
Keep
too,
going.
Katy. I appreciate that.
Great job.
You've been listening to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. And our guest has been Katy Manor, who's currently heard on 107.9 K-Wave. And we've been talking about her radio career over the last, 40 years. And great stories. And until next time, when we talk to other radio personalities, keep your mind on the things above. And as you hit that open road, don't be a slut on Spectator.